Hi, welcome to the farm. It's a rainy, cool Sunday afternoon here on the farm, and so I'm making some Christmas presents. And for these very special ladies, friends of mine, I'm making cobbler pies. So I thought I would show you how to make cobbler dough, how to make pastry dough, and then how to make a cobbler pie. So what we'll do with this pastry, I have the recipe here. We'll start with 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. That's plain flour. So there's one, and that's about a half, okay? And 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt. Now I only have my half teaspoon, tablespoon, I said tablespoon, teaspoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon, so I'll just do a heaping teaspoon of salt. Alright, sift that. This flour has been in the refrigerator, so it's a little bit lumpy. So I'll just smash those lumps out. I keep my flour in the refrigerator. That keeps it nice and fresh. Alrighty, there's the flour. Next, we will take 1 stick of butter. 1 stick is the equivalent of a 1/4 pound of butter. So what I'll do, when I take this wrapper off, I always save these wrappers to use to grease my pie dishes with, because there's enough residue of the butter left on there, and so we'll use that in a minute. So we'll just cut this up into chunks. You want your butter to be good and cold. One of the reasons that it's good for your butter to be really cold, it keeps it firm in the pastry. When you mix it, try to mix it with your hands. The heat from your hands causes it to melt somewhat, and that is not as good for your pastry. So we'll cut that up. Alright. And then take our pastry cutter and work this in. Actually, this butter had been in the freezer. I forgot to get it out earlier, so I had it sitting out for a few minutes, so it's still pretty stiff, but it won't take it long to cut up in. You really don't want the butter cut up too finely, because you want it to leave chunks in the pastry, in the dough. Oh, there we go. Right. My mother-in-law made the most delicious pie crust. Mine are pretty simple, like you would use for cobbler pies. They're not pretty and they're not dainty, but they're pretty good. Haven't had any complaints. Okay, I've got that worked in. In fact, I'm probably going to cut part of this out so the video doesn't run too long and you're not bored by just watching me cut up pastry. Okay, I about got the pastry cut in, the butter cut into the pastry here, and it's in pretty small pieces, not really tiny, but pretty small. We want to have some butter flavor to the pastry. Okay, I don't have a mixer with a dough hook, so what I do is just really simple. I've got the dough, the butter cut up into the flour, and you'll take ice water. And if you're new at this, if you've never made pastry before, it'd probably be a good idea to take a spoon, a tablespoon, and begin to work your water into it. Maybe put 3 or 4 tablespoons in at a time, and then begin working that around. I've done it so long that I really don't do it that way anymore. I did in the beginning. So what I'll do is just pour a little water in and begin just working it around, just stirring. Stirring basically is all I'm doing. And as a stir, you'll see the dough begins to come together in a shaggy ball. You'll begin to see that you probably would need a little bit more water to get it to hold together. Using a spoon helps you, keeps you from getting too much water in it in the beginning. You see how that's working together? Just keep stirring around and around and around, and it finally makes a ball of dough. So at this point, we'll just leave it in that damp shaggy or a damp ball. Take a sheet of plastic wrap and let that ball come out in your hand. There we go. And just wrap it up in the plastic. Now if I was going to use this today, I would put this in the refrigerator for at least a couple of hours. But you can also, it can stay in the refrigerator overnight, 2 or 3 days. Or a lot of times I'll make 4 or 5 balls of these at a time while I'm already in the mess and put these in the freezer. They freeze really well. So that would be our pastry. Alrighty, let me set these things out of the way. Someone told me in an earlier video I did, they said, you really need to kind of clean up your kitchen. It's a little cluttered. If I cleaned up my kitchen before I made a video, I'd never get around to making a video. So, the kitchen is what it is. Here's a ball of pastry that I made yesterday, and I've made these pies earlier today. And so I'm making this last one to show. So what we'll do is we'll take this pastry out of the plastic and put it on the flour. Now, before I make the pie, remember that butter sheet that I had? I'll take that and grease my pan, a plate, pie plate with it. There's enough butter residue left on this that it greases the pie pan, pie plate, whatever you're using, pretty well. When I'm making a cobbler pie for us, I generally will use a cast iron skillet, but these are for Christmas gifts and they're going to keep the bowl, so I'm going to use something a little bit prettier. Alright, so we'll take our pastry and begin working it out. Okay. All these utensils out of the way. And it really doesn't take any more kneading, just a little bit of flour to it to keep it from sticking to the dough board. With a little flour under it. Okay, I'm going to roll this out. Cobbler pies, I really haven't done any research on the name cobbler, but maybe it's because they're just kind of cobbled together. I don't do fancy. I don't generally do top crusts and bottom crusts for a cobbler pie. It's just, or a fruit pie, are really good just plain like this. Alrighty, got that worked out. Now I'll take pastry, drape it over the dish. Alright, and work it down into the dish. Alright, now this is going to be an apple pie. I canned this apple pie filling last summer. Used the ball canning recipe for this. And this stuff is so good. All we have to do is open the can and put it in the crust. I don't remember the type of apples I used for this. I think there was a mixture of apples. It wasn't all just one kind. But this pie filling is, well, I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing I've ever canned, but it's not that hard. And it is definitely worth it when it comes to ease in making apple pies. One of the great things about using a spatula like this and getting every last little drop out, and then once you've got everything out that you want to go into the pie, then you get the last bite. Man, that's good. Alrighty, so you can see the pie. I'll just take this crust, fold it back over the top to take the top crust. Alright, and there we go. Now I'll bake this for about 45 minutes until the crust gets done. The apples obviously are already cooked. Bake it until the crust gets done and good and brown, and then it'll be ready to go. Here is one, actually it's still hot, that I made earlier. Oh man, that smells good. And one thing that I do is I'll melt a little bit butter on this crust and sprinkle a little bit of really fine sugar on it. That makes for a great topping. This is a strawberry cobbler that I made earlier. Also made the strawberry pie filling this summer. So there you have it. Pastry, apple pie. You don't get no better than that. I hope you've enjoyed that. Email me if you would like some additional recipes, or if you have questions, anything that needs to be clarified. You can email me at bnprayerlog, PRAYERLOGUE, bnprayerlog@cs.com. My web address is www.newmanvalley.wordpress.com. I hope you enjoy. Have a great day.